Okay. Now, this is our second podcast with Parasaur Studios with my friend Alec here. And I just want to mention, and I want to compliment Alec on what he's done so far. And he's the one who came up with the fundamental things with Aldo Senior. And anyway, he's putting it all together. And I just want to compliment him on that.
Well, thank you very much, Aldo. I appreciate it.
That's right, Alec. Very good. Anyway, so here I am in Memphis, of course, and I might as well give my son's latest restaurant a plug. It's called Mama's. It used to be called the Dirty Crow. And we happened to meet there yesterday because I was curious about the presidential debate. So I'm going to do a few minutes on it. I really don't want to get this show is not about politics. I just want to have fun with it. But I have to say something about that. Okay? I watched it for a few minutes, and it was actually embarrassing to see political figures, people who govern our lives, millions and millions of lives. And, the President of the United States was called a clown. He was told to shut up. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I like to think myself as an American, although I wasn't born here. But then again, neither were the people who came over on the Mayflower, okay? So, and I want to point out that the people in political power, high political power, they're the ones who send our young men to war, okay? So it's a little embarrassing to the digs that they did to each other, like school children. It doesn't make any sense. As far as America being great, of course it's great because it belongs to us. The people are great. It's in the Constitution of the United States. It's in the Declaration of Independence. We, the people. This is our house. It's not theirs. They're just temporary custodians, like a custodian in a school. That's what they're there for, okay? Now, it's up to us who we put in there, okay? But it's getting to the point now where unless you're very wealthy, you're not going to get in high political positions. So they actually don't even know what the regular individual lives like. The blue-collar worker that keeps this country going. They have no idea. But when you're worth $100 million, what kind of, you don't know about layoffs or if your heater breaks down, where you're going to get the money, if your roof leaks, where you're going to get the money. These people have no idea how regular people live, So they better get their act together. I don't want to say too much, but I have to say it was embarrassing, okay? It was embarrassing. I couldn't watch it. After about 10, 15 minutes, I couldn't watch it anymore. And then after that, political analysts go on TV and they tell you what they said, as if they talk to you like you're a moron. They got to cut it out. They have to cut out the fact that they must realize that the average American is intelligent. Okay? And all they talked about was this Obamacare. Why they keep calling it Obamacare? It's health care. Now, my thought is this. Is a rich man's children, a rich woman's children, more important than a poor man's children? Everyone should have the exact same health care. I saw something one time in Las Vegas, which was brutal. A guy was brought into a hospital with a knife sticking out of his side in a gurney. He was wheeled in, and then he was wheeled out. Then they took him to another hospital. He was wheeled in and wheeled out because he didn't have medical insurance. Then finally, Clark County Hospital was basically forced to take him. I've even sat in the waiting room when someone had a heart attack and they didn't have insurance. And the nurse walked into the waiting room and said, "Do you want us to call a cardiologist?" And my thought was, no, call a plumber. Doesn't make any, of course you're going to call a cardiologist. He had a heart attack. All right. So now, getting back to political power, I'm going to say one more thing. After 9/11, a congressman was interviewed on the steps of Congress, and I'll never forget. He was being interviewed, and he said, "We're not Republicans, we're not Democrats, we're Americans." Well, I would hope so. Can a Democrat have lunch with a Republican? Can a Republican have lunch with a Democrat without being called names or without being blackballed? I don't know. Anyway, now I'm done with politics, okay? Now we'll discuss, here's what we'll discuss on this podcast. We will discuss how politicians or people in power can sit around a room and make something legal, okay? I'm gonna back up to, I would say, the early 70s. The early 70s is when lotteries started to appear in the United States. In fact, I remember going into a convenience store one time, and there was a line for lottery tickets, and I'm not buying lottery ticket, I'm buying something else. So I made a comment and said, look, if you want to book numbers, then you have to hire somebody else so they can book the numbers while you wait on people. I don't want to wait while someone's booking numbers, okay? Now, I grew up in an area where there was a lot of bookmakers, okay? And this is the early 70s. I'm going to bring up his name. What's the difference? He's an old-timer now. His name was Muggsy. He was my landlord, and he was a bookmaker. And he got arrested and went to jail for 9 months. These guys that drove Cadillacs and wore $500 to $2,000 suits, all of a sudden they're in a place called Jones Farm planting tomatoes, and or they're in jail making jewelry boxes. But the point is that they all got 9 months. Now, in the incarceration system, if you get over a year, you're a state prisoner. If you get under a year, you're a county prisoner. And that's what happened in New Jersey. They put all these bookmakers in county prisons for about 9 months. And then, of course, now think about this. The state of New Jersey took these little gray minivans and put the New Jersey emblem on there, and they started bookmaking, Now, I've been gambling my whole life, but never have I enticed anyone to gamble. But yet, the states all over the country, they advertise it pays to dream. They want you to play the lottery. Tennessee does the same thing. It's a little hypocritical. You're enticing people to gamble. Instead of buying milk or bread when they go to a store, they buy lottery tickets. And the scratch-offs, they're the worst. Okay? That's pretty sad. Right? I read one time where it goes towards schools, it goes towards medical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what they did before the lottery. Okay? Now, is the money spread around? I don't know. Here I go again with these political things. But the point is that men with suits on, they sit around the table and they decide what is legal and what is not legal. Okay? And it's the same thing that's happening with the marijuana laws in this country. They tried with prohibition. We're a republic that's spoiled. We're going to get what we want. Okay? Now, the way I see it is this way. Once something is politically motivated, it moves fast. It moves. Did I mention Las Vegas, the last podcast, about how it took 73 years for one other state to get gambling? No, I don't think
you did.
No. Okay. I was in Las Vegas in 2005, and Las Vegas celebrated 100 years. It incorporated in 1905. Now, Nevada, the state of Nevada, has had a lot of exceptions law-wise. Because we tested nuclear bombs there, or most of the nuclear waste in this from this country is in Nevada, Yucatan, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the point is this: from 1905 to 1978, which is 73 years, only one other state got gambling, which was New Jersey. And only in Atlantic City, which is a big mistake to put it just in one city. But the reason they did that is because Atlantic City at the time was maybe 40% ghetto. And at one time, it was the honeymoon capital of the world. So they pushed. Oh, and they paid. It failed the first time. The referendum failed for gambling. But I'll never forget reading, they hired a political promoter and paid him $30,000 a week so he can pass it. And of course, there was mostly seniors in Atlantic City, and that's how he got them. He got the senior vote because he promised them this, he promised them that, which is a lot of nonsense. Because sometimes what happens, just like the bookmakers in New Jersey were locked up and the state of New Jersey went into business, all the water goes in the well. They took all the money off the streets. The little guy, the mom and pop stores, the small retailers, there was no more money in the street. You know, it's almost like the human element of greed. You know, so the point is this. It took 73 years for one other state to have gambling in this country. But once something gets politically motivated, now, I mean, I don't know the exact figure. Don't quote me on this stuff. But there has to be at least 35 to 40 states that have some form of gambling in the United States. It's a way to go into your pockets by letting you do what you want to do. You know, we want to drink, we got the alcohol back. Hey, I heard there's 60 million people in this country that smoke marijuana, so they're starting to make it legal because they figure on the taxes. And they're doing well. They fixed the roads. I have one more thing to say about this. When Pennsylvania decided to allow gambling, what they did is they went through the whole state. Now, I remember at the time it was Governor Randall, and he was being interviewed, I think, by 60 Minutes. And it was a woman interviewing him, and she mentioned about, don't you feel bad about seniors blowing their Social Security money, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, no, I'm going to let them go to New Jersey and blow their money. You see? So I think about Tennessee, and Tennessee doesn't have gambling, but people go to Arkansas to gamble. They go to Mississippi to gamble. Now, if you ever go to Tunica or you go to Arkansas, there's an awful lot of Tennessee license plates in that parking lot. You know, so who decides what is right and what is wrong? That's the point of why when I spent time in Italy and I came back and I said society sometimes brainwashes. Okay? So, and that's that. But the bookmakers were interesting. I used to, there was a club in my neighborhood called Butler Street. And I used to go in there when I was a teenager. And I used to handle money for some of these guys that wore pinky rings, et cetera, et cetera. But it was basically legit. They were honorable among themselves, you know. And I would make a pay. I would say handle money for Rafi, or I would cut a blackjack game for Nunzi and Tamil. And I would make a pay. They pay me so much an hour, plus I'd get tips. The dealer would have to pay every time there was a blackjack, or every time the cards were shuffled. And I remember this one individual that used to hand me the money for the cut, and then he'd say, and this is for you, or this is for coffee, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I was able to make a pay. My parents, they didn't have the money for me to go out and buy clothes, so that's what I used to do. I used to make a pay with these guys. In fact, when I came back from Italy, I used to run a blackjack club for Muggsy and Nunzi. I hope I don't get sued for this. So anyway, the point is that I was, you know, mixing cement for my boss, the only boss I ever really had. I was making... let's put it this way. After taxes, I was clearing $63 a week. I get paid around 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'd be broke at 8. So one day, on a Sunday, I used to have a friend of mine who used to pick me up to go down to Jersey Shore. But I overslept one morning, and I ended up walking to the corner. I was staying with my friend Puggy. I walked down to the corner, and the guy who normally ran the joint wasn't there. His name was Andy Black. In fact, he was known to wash his feet in the toilet bowl. I don't know. That's what they told me.
Oh, my God.
So, excuse me. So I hung out a little bit. A few guys came in, and before you know it, I started a blackjack game, and here I'm making a pay. It was on a Sunday. So Muggsy comes in, and Nunzi, and they say, "Where's Andy Black?" I said, "I don't know." I said, I put the game together. So they made me a deal, They gave me 25% of, we used a cigar box to put the money in. So they gave me 25%, which was, the average cut was between $20 and $25 a day. So I got 25%. But little did they know, if it was 28, I keep the 8 and then get a 25% of the $20. Hey, what are you going to do? So the point is that I was making $50, $60 a day rather than making $63 a week. And, hey, I had bills to pay. I had a family in Italy that needed money for tickets. And basically that's what I did. I ran a blackjack club. Until I caught a guy cheating, okay? And we had a little hassle. He weighed 240 pounds. I weighed 140 pounds. Boy, did I escape that day. I think I even hit him in the head with a cue stick. I think it broke. But I kept him away from me so I wouldn't get hurt, And then I gave that up, of course. Went back to mixing cement.
Did you have a name for your blackjack club?
Well, not really. But I used to run one during the day, and then I used to run one at night. The one during the day was for younger people, and the one at night was for the older guys. The older guys' club was called a Frontier Club. There used to be all joints in my neighborhood. One of them, I loved the name, was called a Cabbage Club. Is that a great name for a club?
Cabbage
Club.
They
were joints. Who had a joint here, who had a joint there. One guy used to have a poker joint, and he had a piece of paper stuck to the wall with a knife in it, and it said, "Don't ask." In other words, it meant you couldn't borrow any money. He was Jerry the Lob. He was a roofer, but he ran a joint during the day.
Jerry the Lob?
Jerry the Lob. I'm not going to get into why he was called a lob. But that's the kind of neighborhood I lived in. Louis the Lug, Deke, Kangaroo, Sticks, Legs, Vinny the Guinea. I mean,
man.
In other words, it was kind of interesting. But I used to call them the professors of the street because I never went to school. I shouldn't say I never went to school. I went to school a little bit. I did graduate from 9th grade, which was big, In fact, I actually got my mother to buy me a suit. It wasn't easy. It glittered, I think. It was like a sharkskin suit. I think when I went on stage, the reflection, I think, must have blinded people. I don't know why it was so shiny, And the only reason I graduated was because I had to go to my homeroom class and write something 50 times because Miss Hunt wouldn't sign for me to graduate. Although I liked her, though. She was an art teacher. And but I did graduate from 9th grade. Then, of course, I went to Italy for a while, but I said that in the last podcast. What else can we discuss? Let's discuss Memphis a little bit. Okay. Now, I like words. I like the definition of words, and it's kind of interesting how the word Memphis. It actually originates from Greek. It's 3000 BC, and it means a lot of things. It also means the village of artistic people, city by the river, a village of friendly people. I wonder how many people really know what Memphis means. And now my introduction to Memphis is I lived in Midtown with my son Aldo and his wife. In fact, the first time I lived in Memphis, I came through town to on my way to Vegas to see my granddaughter, who was 9 months old. And Aldo was opening up the first pizzeria on Main Street. And one thing led to another. I didn't particularly care. I've been in the building business my whole life. So I didn't like what was going on. And Aldo mentioned that he was going to open a certain day. And I said, nah, I don't think so. I don't like what was going on. So I rolled up my sleeves and got the chop saw and the table saw, and I started working on it. And I remember staying at his house in Midtown. And it turned into 5.5 months. In fact, when I left, I looked at my daughter-in-law and I said, Caroline, not bad for having a guest for 5.5 months. That's a long time, you know. But now, of course, I have another son here, you know, and but Aldo's really the reason why I'm here. And he now, I'll give him a plug.
Yeah.
He operates 6 restaurants. The last one is Mama's, and it just opened this Monday again. It was open for a while, now it's opened again Monday. And by the way, not for anything, but not because he's my son, but they have a great cheeseburger. I think it's half a pound.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a monster. Now, I don't use special sauces and all. Me, I just like Swiss cheese and grilled onions. Now, here they have them fried or grilled. It's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has a beautiful, beautiful menu. He was supposed to be here tonight, but he's putting up plywood in his garage.
You think we can have him on soon?
Yeah, next week we'll have him on.
Yeah. And I was going to say, we met when you were building Aldo's.
When I was finishing Aldo's Pizza Pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it's the strangest thing that I'm up in the back bar where I put the metal up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these 2 girls came in and they started to talk to me. I think it was around June. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, you're going to open June 23rd. And I turned around and I said, I don't think so, you know. So then my son, I didn't know who they were. And then my son, I saw him later that day, and he said, oh, when the Memphis Flyer came out, he said, you've been in town for 2 weeks. You made the paper, and you threw me under the bus. Because he told them what day they were going to open. And I said, I don't think so. And then the banks, they get nervous.
Yeah.
You know, that's a fact. They want the register to open.
Yeah.
You know, but we got it done.
Yeah.
You know, we got it done. And that's where I met Alec. Alec applied for a job there, and we were putting furniture together.
Yeah.
Right?
And staining those bars.
Staining bars and stuff.
Polyurethane.
Polyurethane all over the place.
Yeah.
Aldo and Cliff, one of his partners, they gave the counter I put up against the window by the back bar so many coats of polyurethane, it took 6 months for it to dry.
Stick a toothpick in it.
Yeah, well, they want to get it over with.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. So anyway, when I say let's have fun, I know I started the show with a political, about politics, but, it's truly amazing. I have to say, but one more thing. I have to say, I mean, where do they get all this money? How did they make all this money, these high-power politicians? It's amazing. I've learned quite a bit about Roman history from my brother Carlo because he's always considered us Roman because my father was born in Perugia, Italy, which is a province of Rome. And, Roman senators would buy seats, It's amazing how the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, we have taken so much from Roman history. Is phenomenal, In fact, I read once where Rome, in recorded history, was one of the only, power, I guess,
Empires?
an empire in recorded history that ruled for 1,200 years. The only empire in recorded history that ruled for 1,200 years. And Rome gets credited for building roads. They were famous for building roads. Well, sure, they took all the booty from other countries, and they had to have good roads to move all that gold, you know? But it's interesting. I mean, at one time, Rome had 1 million people, and they had... they had health spas, they had baths, they had aqueducts for water, you know. So we've taken a lot from Rome. The Senate, the plebeian in Roman history is Congress. The first man of Rome was the leading senator, which is the president of the United States, you know. The military, the army could never enter Rome. A civilian was the commander-in-chief, not a military man like in some countries, you know. Because I wonder, you know, when you see something, especially when I was growing up, it was, you know, a ruler of a country would being interviewed or come on TV, and he's got all these medals, and I'm saying to myself, who gave him all these medals if he's the ruler of the country? You know, it's kind of interesting. But for some reason, civilians are the ones who rule, you know, and I can't figure out why grown men can act like children. That's why, just getting back to that debate last night, it was sad. I was actually like, I wanted to shed a tear because I remember the day that John Kennedy was assassinated. I think I was about 13. I remember coming home that day and hearing in the streets that John Kennedy was assassinated, the President of the United States. And I remember coming home, and my father had this easy chair he would sit on, and he had a tear in his eye. He was watching TV. Now, it's the first time I ever saw a tear in his eye. I thought about it as I grew older, and I think about what a great man Kennedy was. But then again, I think my father loved this country. Now, what I think about is, I think my father's tear was for the presidency, not so much for John Kennedy, but the fact that the President of the United States was assassinated. It must have broke his heart. Well, I'm sure it broke a lot of people's hearts, especially his own family. So, when I was watching this debate yesterday, it was an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. You know, it was almost like comedy to watch grown men talk to each other that way. Now I'm done with politics. Let's go on to something else. Okay. You know, let's discuss writing. Let's discuss writing TV shows, radio, movies. I always felt that writers never really got enough credit, you know. In fact, Barry Manilow used to write jingles for McDonald's.
Really?
Yeah, in fact, We Do It All For You, I think he wrote that. But he found that he made a lot more money when he sang them. Writers are in the background, you know. It's very hard to write. Sometimes, you know, you get a blank or you can't even think of what to write. In fact, Hemingway was known to say, it took me all morning to write a period and all afternoon to erase it. Mm. Because it's something that is, especially if you're using imagination, it's hard to write, you know. I know I've got a couple screenplays. Did I mention that in the last?
You mentioned that you've written, but I don't think you've talked much about the screenplays.
Yeah. I wrote a screenplay about, getting back to my neighborhood, about Frankie Stilitano. I changed the names in the screenplay, but he was someone I knew that was found in the trunk of a car Philadelphia parking garage, Philadelphia International Airport parking garage. His tortured, decomposed body was found in the trunk of a Cadillac. So I had made a tape years ago, maybe 20-some years ago, 25 years ago, and I happened to listen to it one day, and I got the idea to write this story called My Main Man. And it has to do with Frankie Stilatano. And, well, let's put it this way. When I came back from Italy, I sat in the park with him. We had a quart of beer. And he told me that, I hope nobody gets upset with me about this, but he told me his mother stepped out for a 6-pack of beer and a pack of cigarettes and never came back. Left 6 kids. So it's got to do something to your mind. So I felt like I should pen this story because I wanted to talk about the person I knew. I wanted to, not based on a true story, but make it a true story. Talk a little bit about Frankie, who ended up being killed when he was 28 years old by a guy named Sammy Gravano, who Sammy the Bull. He's the one that turned state evidence against Gotti. Not for anything, but, is the Machiavelli theory of the end justifies the means. The United States government forgave Sammy Gravano 19 murders that he admitted to so they can bust John Gotti. They didn't have enough evidence to put a man in jail who was approximately brought over $1 million every month to his club on Mulberry Street. So they played a tape for Sammy Gravano that John Gotti, he heard John Gotti say, "What am I going to do, whack the guy?" As soon as he said that, Sammy Gravano knew he was history, so he turned state evidence. Now, he's out and about writing books, making money. Now, how could you forgive someone 19 murders and let him out in the street? I mean, you talk about, I think he killed his brother-in-law for a sheetrock business. I know he killed Frankie. He admitted it. It was an open contract for $100,000. In today's money, it would be about $400,000. I think I'm going to say this, and maybe he's going to try to kill me, but I'm going to have to say this. He'd have killed his mother for $400,000. Sammy Gravano. I actually met him.
You met the killer?
Yeah.
Oh,
I met him at a crap game in Bristol, Pennsylvania. In fact, he palled around with Frankie. That's how we got to Frankie.
Mm.
In fact, I went there, and he was laying in a lawn chair. He couldn't even reach the end of the lawn chair. He was a little guy.
Wait, where was this? What was the setting?
Bristol, Pennsylvania.
And was it by a pool or something?
No.
Why was he in a beach chair?
Well, in a lawn chair. It probably was free or something.
Okay.
It's called the floating crap game because they move it.
Mm.
That's why they call it a floating crap game.
Okay.
In fact, I was supposed to work the game.
Oh, really?
A fog. When I went from Trenton, New Jersey to Morrisville on the Route 1 bridge, which is a toll bridge. After I paid the toll, I went through the bridge, and it was so foggy I couldn't see the front of the car. And I wasn't that familiar with the place, so I knew it'd be difficult for me to find, and I said, forget this. I turned around. And the crap game got busted.
Wow.
Guys went to jail, But the point is that him and Sammy were friends. Sammy Gravano had a bar in Brooklyn, and Frankie hung out there. In fact, they have Frankie on tape that Sammy Gravano is arguing with his brother-in-law, and Frankie says, "You two should get married." It was a thing from my neighborhood when two men argued. They said, "You two should get married." It's like I told my sister sometimes when she argued with me, the older sister. I said, "You should get married." Argue with him, don't argue with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway,
But
I mean, how I knew Frankie and how other people knew him was different.
But did you meet him after he'd killed your friend?
No, before.
Oh, okay.
They were palled around together.
Okay, I just didn't know when you met him, if he'd already
Sammy
killed...
Gravano, no. I met him. Frankie introduced me to him.
Oh, wow.
And he said, Sammy kills people for a living, and he laughed, Frankie. Frankie liked to laugh.
Oh, my God.
That's exactly what he said to me.
Wow. Did you get a bad omen from this guy?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Frankie laughed. He laughed it off. Frankie used to love to laugh, you know.
Yeah.
And he'd always say, "You're my main man," and that's why I titled the story "My Main Man." You know. In fact, my nephew Mark is insistent that a movie should be made.
Yeah.
And it should go on Netflix.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey, we'll send this to some producers.
Well, let's put it this way, okay? Now, there's 30 companies that stream movies into people's homes, okay? So my objective with this podcast is to eventually either I sell my stories or I make the films myself, okay? And then put them out to bid. It's all about content, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I have to bring this up, okay? Now, I'm going through the TV, and now Martha Stewart, of course, is pretty famous. I can tell you a little bit about Martha Stewart in a second, but I'm going through the TV, and Martha Stewart is framing an 8x10 picture. She did a whole half-hour show on how to frame an 8x10 picture with the black paper behind it, et cetera, okay? Now, I delivered someone to Virginia federal prison that had to do with embezzlement. But she didn't really embezzle. She got borrowed money for her family and not herself. In fact, it was like an amount, I think it was $350,000. But she didn't end up with any money. God rest her soul. She passed away now. She didn't end up with a quarter. She did it for family. She worked in a bank.
Talking about Martha Stewart?
No.
Oh.
This other woman. I ended up delivering her. In other words, it's interesting here. She went to court. The judge gave her 9 months and then told her to show up at Virginia Federal Prison on June 21st. It was kind of interesting. I might have left the country myself. But so now it had the relations of my sister and brother-in-law. Make a long story short. So now my sister and brother-in-law go visit her. So when they pulled up, Martha Stewart was at the picnic table with her daughter and her attorney. And my brother-in-law says to my sister, "Take a picture." You know, my sister says, "I'm not going to take no picture." Probably would have gotten $50,000 for that picture. Martha Stewart in a federal prison uniform.
Oh, my God.
A woman who's worth billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of interesting that inside trading, you know, what it means, I don't know. You go to a party and someone who's going to a board meeting knows that the stock is going to, you know, be worth more than it is now. And basically that's what inside trading is. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. But everything is technical. What's his name? Joe Biden kept talking about Trump only paid $750 in taxes. I could never understand that, you know. But everybody uses loopholes, from the Rockefellers or J.P. Morgan or Carnegie or the old timers, you know. Sophia Loren spent 30 days in an Italian prison, and she became a French citizen to save $30 million. That's pretty sharp, huh? Why not? $1 million a day.
Yeah.
I think I would do that, right?
Yeah. But don't you feel like the like someone like Trump, though, he's all about saying that, like, the Republican Party is always like, oh, well, immigrants don't pay their taxes. That's why immigrants are bad. And then Trump through loopholes, even if it's illegal, he's not paying taxes. It just seems hypocritical.
There's a lot of hypocritical things.
Yeah.
I read one time where Tennessee wanted to make the Bible, one of the Bibles, the state book. And the state and church is separated.
Yeah.
If state and church wasn't separated, then a Baptist would be killing a Catholic, and a Catholic would be killing a Jew. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
This whole country is founded on the fact that we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of religion. That's why I say that it's not one person or two people to make this country great. This country is great. Because we struggle to be able to say what we want to say. You can't prosecute someone for belittling the president. You can't prosecute someone for being in debt. In other words, like bond slaves, indentured servants, where England had indentured servants, and if a father couldn't pay his bills, then the daughter or the son would have to become indentured servants to serve out the time to pay back a debt. Look, the bottom line is this: wealth makes the rules. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is wealth makes the rules. They make it for themselves. It's a shame, but that's the way it is. Okay? That's why I read that Pelosi's worth $100 million. Where did they get it? Biden's worth a lot of money. Trump's worth a lot of money. But I'm wondering how many people have read The Art of the Deal, which was Trump's autobiography. He's an admitted shyster. He'll admit it. He's done some things in his life, not perfect. But the point is that at least politicians aren't human, okay? They can't be human, in other words. If they get a little blemish, they can't run for politics. So what happened, how did Trump get in? The Trump got in, I say this, politicians elected Trump. People are tired of the bullshit. I can write on a page 8 by 10 what you need to say to run for politics. It's always the same thing. It takes a village to raise a child, better health care, lower taxes, etc., etc., etc. The same thing over and over and over. They don't stop. It's insulting. That's why I couldn't watch more than 10, 15 minutes of that debate last night. It's ludicrous. And then the commentators, they're more ludicrous because now they're telling you what the politician said as if you're stupid. They talk to you like you're stupid. Maybe people should walk around with signs on their chest that says I'm intelligent, because that's the way they talk to people. That's not nice. It's like a car salesman selling you a car and he's kicking the tires and he says it's got good tires. The car don't run, but it's got good tires. You know what I mean? This was my brother-in-law's car. He only used it to go to church. When they turned down the mileage, I had 150,000 miles. Now it's got 32. I mean, I know people that got arrested for turning back the mileage on cars. You can't talk to people that way anymore. It's become. People are educated. What's the literacy in the United States? It's got to be a very, very, very small percentage. It's not 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. It's almost like, here's a good subject. Here's an interesting subject. The Supreme Court of the United States had to make some kind of ruling about same-sex marriages. Now, I had read that, and I said to myself, a marriage is a marriage. What kind of rules are you going to make? If you call it a marriage, it's the same marriage. Same benefits, the tax credits, or whatever they get. It's the same thing. What are you going to rule on? That's the way it is. If you're going to, it's like anything else. It's like in Pahrump, Nevada, prostitution is legal. Okay? There's the chicken ranch, the Mustang ranch. I'll tell you something ludicrous. A guy by the name of Comfort. I think it was a New York cab driver. Don't quote me on all this stuff, please, but pay attention. He owned a brothel. I think it was called a Mustang Ranch. Okay? Now, as crazy as this sounds, he owed IRS $12 million. Okay? So now the United States government was running, a whorehouse to recoup the $12 million. Well, they screwed up so bad, guess what they did? They hired him to run it. The guy that owed them $12 million. Imagine that. Imagine that, you know. Now, getting back to, the reason I got that expression, it's our house, someone I know said to his wife, he had 3 children, you know. He said to his wife, Donna, don't you think maybe we should take our house back? Because the kids were running the household. So I say this, it's our house. They're just custodians. The politicians get elected by the people. People have to realize it's all about us. It's about us. It's not about them. You know, the mafia in Sicily got started because at one time there was dukes and earls and counts and princesses, and they owned all the land. Okay? They got fat and sloppy, so they hired men to oversee their property and oversee the people that work for them, mostly on horseback. Well, the men on horseback and the men who were overseeing things for these counts and dukes who owned all this land, seeing how soft these people had become, so they're the ones who took over. And that's how the mafia started. The mafia started because they wanted a piece of the action. Instead of, you know, because there's a piece of paper written that 100,000 acres was left to this person or to that person. Meanwhile, they're sitting around dinner tables and having orgies, et cetera, et cetera. So these men figured, look how weak these people are. So they started taking over. And that's what politicians remind me of. Politicians, high-power politics reminds me of dukes and earls and this and that. You know, there's some strange laws. What's that called when someone comes into this country and they're a political they're immune to the law. In other words, it's they have it's really strange.
What?
They can't be punished for a crime. They have this. I can't think of it.
And it's for immigrants?
No, this is someone who has. They come to this country, maybe an embassy,
immunity, sovereignty.
Well, they for instance, there's in America we have foreign countries' embassies, right? I know of someone that was from an embassy who, I don't know them, but someone I know, his mother had an accident, and they couldn't even sue them because he had immunity because he was from an embassy, person that crashed into her.
Diplomatic immunity?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to start making some notes of what I'm going to talk about. But I've been in the building trades my whole life. And when I was 14, my father knew I was a moron in school, so he sent me to go mix cement. I went to parochial school, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. A place called St. Joachim's. And the teachers were nuns. They were the Filipino order, Catholic nuns. But I look at it this way. They had nothing to do but study all day. I've learned quite a bit from them. Although, in 8th grade, I think there's 180 school days. I missed 90 in 8th grade. I was never sick. I'd shove toast in my mouth, spit it up. My mother, I'd pass out. Anything not to go to school. Anything not to go to school. I remember when I was around 12, I think, I was trying to figure out how to create a robot so it looked like me, and I would send him to school. And I could play. 90 days. The nuns wanted to know if there was something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. I was bored. Why? I don't know. I don't know why I was bored, but I was bored. I was bored with I took piano lessons for one day. I was bored. My poor parents tried so hard to get someone to play some kind of music. Although I did play the accordion for a little bit. I learned two songs. I learned Take Me Out to the Ball Game and the waltz. The waltz is simple. Da, 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 da. That's the waltz. I'd rather play kickball in the street, in the alley next door to my house. That's the end of that accordion business, you know.
Yeah, what was fun for you, like when you're playing hooky?
When I was playing hookies?
What didn't make you bored?
Trailblazing, going to the woods.
In Italy?
No, here.
Oh, okay, in Jersey?
I got chased by a bull one time.
In New Jersey?
Yeah.
Oh
There's a Kmart there now. In other words, I'm talking back in the day.
Yeah.
I was brutal.
How'd you get chased by a bull?
Because I climbed the fence. I climbed the fence, and there was a pasture, you know. And this bull started, like, coming at me, and, of course, I jumped the fence and got away from him, you know. That's when I was going to Junior 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Junior 4 was interesting. It was called Junior, but now they call it middle school. Is it a middle school?
Middle school, yeah.
Well, from 8th grade, no, wait a minute, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Like junior high.
Junior high. That's what we used to call it, junior high.
Yeah.
Right? Interesting. In fact, I actually was in a play, and I had all kinds of parts. I had two of them were singing. I was singing, Hello, Dolly was one of them. The other song was Extra, Extra. And, but my English teacher, I cut his class so many times. His name was Breza. I'll never forget. He said, forget it. He's out of the play. I said, that's not nice. I says, well, I mean, he was in control, so they had to cut me from all the plays. The only thing I stood in was a minuet called the Merry Widow Waltzers. I wore a white tuxedo type system, and I'll never forget her name's Miss Cox. She was the gym teacher for the girls. And she says, it's too late. I can't teach someone else the steps. So that's the only thing I was left doing, you know. But, you know, Junior 4 was interesting. At lunchtime, there was music. You could dance, ask a girl to dance.
At lunchtime?
At lunchtime.
How'd they play music?
In the gym, in the girls' gym.
To like learn dance moves or just recreation?
Regular dancing. We just played music and regular dance.
That's nice.
You know, yeah. I mean, you know, I was too stupid to ask a girl to dance. It was, you know, when you're 13 years old, you know, girls are frightening.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I remember going to parties. I was 14, 15, and the girls are in one corner and the boys are in the other corner. Boy, do I regret that. Oh, my God, that was terrible, you know. So anyway, the restaurant business is a tough racket. Now, Aldo has over 230 employees, right? This COVID thing, somebody better wake up because, you know, I mentioned it last week. Does COVID come out at 10 p.m.? I mean, really, who came up with this 10 p.m. rule? You know, it's an interesting thing how someone who's not in the game makes rules for people that are in the game. There's an old joke about in Catholicism when birth control started to surface and the Catholic religion was against it. So there's a woman in the Vatican Square listening to the Pope talk. And she stands up and she points her finger at him and says, "Hey, you don't know play the game, you don't know make the rules." In other words,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I'm sure you've heard of Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn's a mogul. He's out of the business now. He's been accused of all kinds of things, But he was in Atlantic City for a while, and he opened up a place called the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City. And so anyway, he ended up selling it. Him and Trump were always rivals. In fact, Trump has a tower in Las Vegas, but no casino. And Steve Wynn, when he left Atlantic City, packed it up, sold everything, and left. And he made a point about how the politicians in New Jersey dictate gambling policy, and they don't know nothing about the gambling business. It's truly amazing how people can dictate what rules are and not know anything about a subject. That's why they're good at writing 10,000 pages for this and 10,000 pages for that. I very rarely forget what I read that's important. There used to be a toy box for children, and this toy box didn't have a some kind of in other words, when you open the lid, it crashed and killed 8 children. And it took 2 years for Congress to pass a law in regards to how to make these toy chests. When my youngest, Quinto, started to play football, I read this stupid article about kids getting their neck broken and dying in high school because the gear doesn't fit right. The helmets don't fit right. My sister, my younger sister, has a scuba diving certificate. So apparently you go to pools, and they happen to use a school. So Quinta was going to Steiner High School, and she said they went there. They were practicing, and she told me, she said, that pool is filthy. She says, make sure that Quinto doesn't go in that pool. These budgets are eaten up. They don't, for some reason, it's like, why is it, maybe it's human nature to cheat, to try to, you can't put a helmet on a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old that's made for someone that weighs 200 pounds when he weighs 140 and his head is smaller because you don't have the budget for it. Then don't eliminate football in high school. Eliminate football in middle school. Professional football players, the gears are made for them. That's why they can take the battering they can take. Everything's custom made. A woman was on the Johnny Carson show one time. One of the first women to be involved in sports interviews. There was a lot of controversy about that, about whether women can go into a men's locker room. And I can't think of her name. But she brought a baseball bat and some gear, football. And I think maybe Johnny Carson put it on and she hit it with a baseball bat. Not hard, but where he couldn't feel it. Because the gears are made that way.
Yeah.
Because I think the lifespan of a guard or a tight end is maybe 5 years, 6 years tops.
I was on the edge of my seat when you're talking about your main man. People are going to love that.
Those are facts.
Oh, yeah.
There's no bullshit. I met Sammy Gravano.
Yeah.
I remember him. Frankie had his brother, John, at the front door. And then you walk up these, it was like a veterans, like the old veterans days where they have these private clubs.
Yeah.
They ran it to him, So I go up the steps and, the front door, somebody's at the front door. Then Frankie was in the lobby with Sammy Gravano sitting laying in his chair. And that's just what he said.
Wow.
He said, this is Sammy. He kills people for a living. And he left because I shrugged it off because, whether Frankie was serious or not.
And how long was it after that moment that he ended up killing him? Was it like years or weeks? Do you know?
78. I have the article somewhere. He was killed right after that. It wasn't too long ago after that. But Frankie ended up killing the guy who not ran the poker game, but it was his.
Mm-hmm.
It was never there. Frankie ended up killing his son.
Oh my God.
He was the boss. They called him the old man. And he put out $100,000 open contract on Frankie. Anybody, I could have killed him.
Oh, wow.
It was an open contract.
And at the time in New Jersey, were the police, did they know those kinds of contracts were going on and they just turned a blind eye?
Oh, they knew. What could they do?
Yeah.
It's even in the newspaper that it said it was a $100,000 open contract.
Wow.
Yeah. What year was Frankie Stilatano killed?
1981. According to the Capital Century, he signed the death warrant on Trenton mobster Frankie Stilatano.
It was never a
On
mobster.
or around Valentine's Day in 1981, an
They
ambitious
found
young Trenton gangster named Frank Stilatano was snatched off the street by thugs who pulled a black hood over his head and drove him away for
It's
execution.
all wrong.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you why it's all wrong. Because Vicky, his wife, told me that the last conversation she had was Frankie. He said, I'm with a friend. I'm going to pick up some lunch meat and bread. She said, we have lunch meat. Just get bread. And that was the last conversation she had.
Oh my God.
He was with a friend. They didn't get him off the streets.
Mm.
He was with a friend. That's bullshit. It's like anything else.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't get him off the street. They'd have never gotten him off the street.
Yeah. I didn't realize that was such a big story that Siri could answer it like that.
That I can come up like that,
Yeah.
that fast.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day, they found him in the trunk.
How far away is Philly from where you were in New Jersey?
35 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's in my story.
Mm-hmm.
But today, I was with friends of mine at a Harris casino. It's called Harris Holiday Inn. And met this girl was in the Baccarat pit. She was a pit boss. And this girl, Kip, was a bartender in the place. And so it's morning. It's morning. You know, I'm with my friend Richie, Moonbeam Monk, and these two girls. I think Moonbeam and Monk were out of the room at this point. And the girl, Kip, who I should have been with instead of Richie, said, Aldo, aren't you from Trenton? I says, yeah. She goes, listen, the TV was on. And that's when I found out. They found him. It was Valentine's. They found him Valentine's Day.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it was Valentine's Day. And I'm listening, okay? Now, I go downstairs to buy cigarettes or something. I'm going to the gift shop. So I take the elevator down. I'm walking, and who do I see? But Nicky Russo, who put the contract out on him. This guy was his henchman. Son, Pal Joey, who's second in command of Nicky Russo.
Pal Joey?
Pal Joey, yeah. Pal Joey. His name was Joe Farinelli. Yeah. He had a business. They always had a business. Joey had a Deli Delight. In fact, Joey got sick on me, but I like Joey. He was kind of straight up. In fact, we sat one time, and he actually wanted me to write his story, his life. But he got sick after that, you know.
Yeah.
But it was interesting one time where Nunzi, he was involved, And we were at the crap table, and Nunzi said, Aldo, he called me Aldo. He said, Aldo, watch this. He said, Joey, he says, and Joey had a cane, you know. He says, Aldo needs $2,000, and Joey dropped the cane, and he went, oh, like his heart ached. He went, oh, he went. So one time, I forget, he was talking to Nicky, his boss, who died.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talk to someone who's dead and you look up.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Joey was looking down. I remember that scene perfect by the crap table.
So on that Valentine's Day, you saw the news and you went downstairs.
I
and
went
all
downstairs, I saw Nicky.
and all those people were there
yes.
that dealt with this part. They were part of it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
That's not what's crazy. I passed them by. They didn't see me, but they were all happy because now they got proof
Yeah.
that he's dead. But when I walked into the hallway, when I walked up the steps into the hallway where the gift shop was, and there was like a cross in the path there inside, and I look, and I see Frankie's best man, kid by the name of I know him well. He's been over my house for a dish of pasta. He was Frankie's best man. He was with his wife. And we made eye contact, and he looked the other way. They had a meeting. He turned him in. That's who the friend was. I'm convinced. Oh, yeah.
Why else would he be there?
Right.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he acknowledge me?
Yeah.
But the reason he gave Frankie up because they threatened him, his wife, and his kids.
Wow.
It's always your best friend.
Yeah. Are most of these characters passed now?
Died. They say he was doing coke one night in a party and he crashed into a tree. I've never known to do drugs his whole life. Then this kid Catfish, who was Frankie's friend, he OD'd. So I saw this kid and I said, I heard Catfish OD. He says, yeah, sure.
You think they were getting hit?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, this guy Nicky wanted to kill Frankie's whole family.
Oh my
He
God.
lost his only son.
Yeah.
Frankie smacked him around. And Frankie went, there's a corner. This was called Penny's right here. It was Nicky Russo's daughter's place. And over here is the El Dorado. So Frankie smacks Michael around, who is the Don's son, Michael Russo. So Frankie goes catty corner. He has a couple of drinks. Catfish is in there. His name is Lenny Pizak. He's one of Frankie's cronies. And Catfish says, "What's the matter?" He says, "Oh, I smacked Michael around a little bit." He said, "He had a couple of drinks. He said, I'm gonna go over there and apologize." But when Frankie came out of the El Dorado, he took 3 bullets. Pal Joey and Nicky were laying up against the wall. But they had 22s and 25s. The Italians are famous for 22s and 25s, but you got to put the bullet in the head so that it bounces around.
Oh my God.
Frankie took 3 bullets. Then Frankie went back into the El Dorado and said to Catfish, "Go get the car. I'm getting shot at."
Had he already gotten hit?
Yeah. So Frankie goes back out. And make a long story short, he hits Nicky Russo in the shoulder. Nicky Russo ends up in a hospital with Pal Joey. The people in the emergency room say the other guy's dead. They're laughing because they think it's Frankie. But it wasn't Frankie, it was his son. Because his son heard that Frankie got hit, so he comes out. Now Frankie catches up to Michael. Chases him. Michael falls. He's trying to crawl underneath the car, and Frankie puts the gun between his shoulder blades. And Michael says, Frankie, please don't. And Frankie's last words to him was, "F you," and he blew his heart out.
Oh my God.
He died in this guy Carmen Barbada's arms.
So did you hear about this, or were you?
I was in Vegas at the time.
Okay. Oh my God.
But the best part is they were looking all over the place for Frankie. Guess where he was? He was 4 doors away at Mazzola's funeral parlor. Jimmy Mazzola was his brother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And his father patched him up at the funeral parlor downstairs.
Mm.
In fact, Frankie, when the trunk of the car that Frankie was found in was registered to Jimmy Mazzola, his brother-in-law.
So the Undertaker sewed him back up and then put him in? Put him in the trunk?
Mazzola. No. No, and then Frankie was a loose cannon.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, Frankie in Pennsylvania at a restaurant laid for Nicky Russo.
So Frankie shot the guy's heart out under the car?
Blew his heart out.
And that guy, his father, was his Undertaker?
No. His father was the Don. Michael Russo was the Don.
Okay.
He killed the Don's son.
Okay.
His only son.
I'm getting my characters mixed up.
He's killed his only son.
So the guy that got shot in the heart was the Don's son.
Michael Russo.
Russo.
That's why Nicky Russo put the $100,000 contract on Frankie.
Wow.
Open contract.
Wow.
So no matter what the news says or what the paper says about putting the hood over his head, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
They might have put it over his head when they brought him or where they brought him. They tortured him.
Yeah.
Oh, they tortured him, shot him in the knees, and they tortured him. But Frankie was the type to spit in their face. He had more guts than brains.
Mm.
Before I left Las Vegas, I got him a job at this club I promoted. And I said, if we lived in the 40s, I'd do things your way. But we live in an age of diplomacy. I was always on the border, like, I never be bothered.
Yeah.
Frankie always told me that, they gave him crumbs. It was always crumbs. He could barely live on what he made with them. But the whole beef was about getting back to the crap game. The whole beef after the crap game got busted.
On the night of the fog?
Not the night of the fog, but like a few days later, a week later. I was supposed to go to work there, make $100 a day, 1978, cash, which was good.
Yeah.
It's 42 years ago.
Yeah.
And so a friend of Frankie's, about the same age, he ended up at Rikers Island jail. It's a federal prison. That's where Luciano was.
Is that in New York, Rikers?
Yeah. And the deal was that he just had a wife and new baby. So the deal, they were supposed to take care of for the 2 years he was in prison.
Mm.
But Nicky and that outfit kept postponing things. Oh, we're not doing too good. There's heat on us, this and that. That's what it was all about. Frankie had a thing about loyalty. What could it have cost him? $250 a week, $300 a week, But that's what it was all about. It was all about them not taking care of things. And Frankie told me more than once. He just give me crumbs. Frankie was a sergeant at arms. You can borrow money at a crap game.
Mm.
But if you don't pay, you got to deal with Frankie, which you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's what Frankie was.
Yeah.
It's like George Washington at Nassau Hall in Princeton was a sergeant at arms.
Mm.
He kept the peace.
Yeah.
While they were doing what they were doing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, by the way, this was our second show. I'm going to call it a show. Podcast, I don't know what that means, but apparently, that's what it's called. But I want to thank you for listening, okay? And I'd like to hear from you. You can send us an email, Ecco'la Entertainment @gmail.com. I'd like to hear your opinion or your views, or ask me to talk about something you want to talk about, or just give me a word and I'll tell you a story. Anyway, thanks for listening. Take care. Till next week.